Well, my name is Susan, and I'm actually from Canada. And in 1972, I returned to Canada after being overseas for a while and discovered I couldn't find a teaching job. So I was working in another profession and decided I'd really like to go back to teaching. And there was a full-page ad in one of our national newspapers that said, "Come to sunny Queensland, a free ticket, free employment for a year." And I thought, well, that's great. Where's Queensland? Got the atlas out. Oh, it's in Australia. I have a friend in Australia, and on the map it's only about an inch away from Brisbane down to Melbourne, so that'd be like a couple of hours drive for sure. So I put my application in, and on the 1st of January 1973, I entered Australia as a landed immigrant.
I was born in Slovenia, which was part of Yugoslavia, 1948. And my mother was killed by lightning when I was a year old. My father sold me when I was 4 years old, and to the farm where I was going to be a potential slave labor, but I was very good at running away. And that's what I was doing most of my life until I was 18 and ran away from Yugoslavia. Managed to get as far as quite a long way through France, Germany, where I was jailed for a month, and finished in Vienna. And I was able to stay in Vienna and got a job and accommodation and migrated from Vienna to Australia, 7th of December 1967.
It was the crackdown by West Pakistan over East Pakistan, killing all the intellectuals and students, because the East Pakistanis for the first time had won the general election. And the West Pakistanis didn't like it. Federal capital was in the West. And the war broke out in 1971. At first, when the crackdown occurred, we all, first of all, were taken by surprise. And a lot of people got killed in our surrounding. We were living in the university quarters. And we all sort of, as soon as we managed, we left our immediate living quarters and went to our parents' homes. And my husband also realized that there was another crackdown being prepared. So he crossed the border to escape to the refugee camp in Kolkata. So I went to my sister in Bangkok, not knowing where I was going after that and not knowing whether my husband had survived or not.
I knew nothing about the country, and yes, it was difficult because, well, measurements were different. When they were talking about the old measurements that Australia used to have, imperial, whatever they called, I wanted to fit into Australian community. I started learning English. I went to school to learn English. I found accommodation at the Commonwealth Hostel in Glenelg, and I was very happy there because I had opportunity to do my training, cooking and catering course, which I completed in Australia.
It was a bit of a shock, and I left from Sydney and immediately went up to Brisbane, and that was the year of the floods. And I thought this was a pretty rugged country to land in. You couldn't go on the train certain sections because it was all washed out. And I landed in a school that I came as a qualified English teacher, and in Canada we taught English. If you were an English teacher, you taught English. If you were a science teacher, you taught science. And suddenly I was in a little town called Corroy in Queensland, and each Monday, the first Monday of every month, they would call you in and give you 8 different subjects to teach. And the first time it happened, I said, "This is like a joke, isn't it? Because I'm a migrant, is this a joke? They're pulling on me." No. This is it, if you're going to teach geography and history and agricultural science, you just do it. I said, "How do you do it?" My background is in English, and they said, basically you just get the book, open the book and teach. And I learned that they were taking people from grade 11 and they were becoming teachers at that time. They were so desperate to bring teachers to the country.
We were the first Bangladeshi migrants in Adelaide. There were some other people in Perth, in Melbourne. Another couple, another family came to Adelaide soon after we did. But when we first arrived, We were the one family. So we just knew these small group of people.
I don't think I adapted. I think I just stayed and ran because the people wouldn't talk to you. It was a very small country town, and country towns are very conservative by nature, and you teach their kids, but the parents wouldn't talk to you. So after 9 months, I was shipped off up to Bundaberg and spent the rest of the year there. And at the end of the year, I decided that maybe Queensland wasn't the place I wanted to be, and drifted down through the States and eventually ended in Adelaide. And Adelaide reminded me a great deal of home. So I instantly felt this rapport with the city.
The only thing that came across that I found very difficult to deal with when I learned that homosexuality was illegal, because there was no such thing as legal or illegal back in Slovenia. But here I suddenly became an illegal, and that was worrying me. So I went to see a psychiatrist who, fortunately enough, was a gay man. And he says, "Do you have a problem with yourself?" I said, "No, I don't have any problem. Australians have got problem. Can you treat them?" And of course, the psychiatrist says it's too many to treat. And I said, "Well, if you can't undo me as a homosexual and turn me into heterosexual, then I'll just have to live double life." And that's what I was planning on. But I didn't have any difficulties. A lot of people found very quickly about my sexuality, and they accepted me because they accepted me first as a human being, then as a homosexual. And I've never advertised it, and yes, at times I thought if people ask me, "Are you married?" and all of that, well, I haven't found anyone suitable yet. And I thought, well, marriage is not legal anyhow. I knew who I would like to marry, but he wasn't all that keen on it either. So that was a bit of a setback, but I lived with it.
So it was good for me to get a job quickly. I found it very difficult at first because it was full-time job, no helpers like we had in Bangladesh. Had to do the shopping, had to do the cooking, and get up early in the morning, go to work by 9 o'clock. Before that, take son to school. So something that took me a while to adjust to, but then the more you do it, the better you get at it. You become automatic in these things.
People used to say, if this country has you for 2 years, it's got you for life. And I went, oh, how silly is that? Except when I went back to Canada after 2 years, it was the middle of winter and you were trapped in the house, or you're trapped in the car, you're trapped in the shopping centre. And I thought, Adelaide, you could go outside any day of the year, sit and have coffee, talk with your friends. And I thought, what have I given up to think about? And I couldn't get employment back in Canada. So I came back to Australia, always thinking that I would go back when the employment situation improved. And then you get married, you have a child, and you landed here, and then you have a divorce and you still landed here because the next generation is actually part of the culture. So you're divided between your family in Canada and your family here. And although there are times when you think, I just would like to pack up and go back, having done it 3 or 4 times, it never is the same. It's never the same as when you left it. Your friends have all changed, their situations have changed, some of them have died, and life goes on wherever you are. And I much prefer the climate here, which is a huge draw card for me.
Even though I lost my professional musical scene, I found somewhere to sort of do something. It wasn't the same, but at least it gave me one avenue to keep it going at a different level. From there, we started working on establishing a cultural center for migrants so that at least we would have a venue. But again, that opened up some other windows. Whenever I got challenged, I had to look around. I couldn't just stay put.
Well, most of the time I feel hope, perseverance, determination. But I did give up a few times as a child. I tried to commit suicide 3 times, and I was not very successful at it, as you can see. And now at my age of 66, I hope I live many, many more years, because I'm very content. I have everything I need. But of course, I don't have everything I want, because if I want something, wants will create more wants. But I've got everything I need.
And I think being first generation, you also are divided between 2 countries all the time. And you're caught in the middle because your culture is back there where you've come from, and yet your culture is here where you've been. I've lived in this country for longer than I lived in my initial country. So, and when I come home after being away, I'm so happy to be home, as in Australia being my home.
I got training here that I wouldn't have got in Bangladesh, in psychology. I also learned to live like a free woman, not as somebody's wife or somebody's daughter. That's how you still get introduced in Bangladesh.
Oh, I've been here for 42 years. This is definitely home, definitely. I mean, my siblings and my parents are aging and dying, and this is where I belong. I will die in Australia. Whether my ashes are sort of split and sent half here and half retained here, I'm not sure. But I know this is the country that I would like to grow old in. I think it's a warm, enriching climate.
Well, I would call my friends my family. I do have some close relatives in Sydney. I don't see them all that often. I do go and visit them a couple of times a year. But my family are my friends.